It's jazz, funk, and soul. It's Jeff Lorber, Everett Harp, and Paul Jackson Jr. today on Something Came From Baltimore.
Hey, Thomas, I'm just going to let you know, if you're going to continue down this road with Jeff, you're in trouble. I'm just letting you know. I said, we're going to be here a while. I'm just letting you know. So,
I'll let you know that this is what we go through when we're on the road. So you'll see this from time to time.
So, Jeff, Everett and I we'll kind of sit here and wait.
Welcome to Something Came From Baltimore. My name is Tom Gouker, and I will be your host today. Something Came From Baltimore is a jazz, blues, and R&B podcast and radio show, and it's not really about Baltimore. In fact, Something Came From Baltimore is free. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. For the first time in Something Came From Baltimore history, I am reviewing 3 people via Zoom. Actually, it's 3 superstars of the smooth jazz arena. Paul Jackson Jr., Everett Harp, and Jeff Lorber. 3 artists, 1 band, jazz, funk, and soul. I have the honor to talk with all of them via Zoom to chat about their newest recording called Forcast. Forcast arrived in stores August the 5th, 2022. It's time to hear a sample. Let's listen to that sample. It's from the album called Forcast. It is the album title called Forcast.
So we're talking about the new album, Jazz, Funk, Soul. Forcast is the name of the album. I have some general questions, and I want to get into the album. Everett, I did an interview with Michael Wolff 2 years ago for his Bounce album, and I spent the majority of the time talking about the Arsenio Hall show.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's one of the most pivotal, educational pieces I've ever had in my whole entire life. I'm looking at your bio, and it said, oh, you just went there once a week, or were you in the band multiple times? And
No, I was only there once a week. Prior to my doing it, Dave Koz was doing it once a week, and then Dave Koz decided to leave, and they were auditioning people. I say auditioning; they were having people come in and sit in once a week until maybe they found somebody they liked. And when I sat in, my manager at that time, Sherwin Bash, came to me and asked me after the sound check, "Is this something that you'd like to do?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And so he said, okay. He came back and said, it's yours.
Was it chaos or was it organized chaos? It felt like there was a lot of fun electricity within the show.
No, it was very organized.
Okay.
It was, they were very organized. I thought, I don't know what Mike said, but I was only there once a week, but I have to assume by that one time a week, that it was representative of what was going on in its totality. So basically, I'd show up, they'd have the music already set, what they wanted to do that day, and we'd have a quick sound check, and then the show would start. It was pretty flawless, but you gotta, I only did it the last year and a half, so they had been on for quite some time. They had a pretty well-oiled machine.
Jeff, you studied chemistry in college. All right, I'm going to give you 3 things. If you remember.
Wait a minute, this is a test? You're going to give me a chemistry test?
It's a test, Jeff. Yes, it's a test.
Yeah. What is a Kelvin?
A Kelvin? Well, Lord Kelvin was a famous scientist in England, and they used his name for a different scale of temperature that goes down to absolute zero. So in other words, Fahrenheit, which we use, isn't really used in serious scientific stuff, but centigrade is. But if you made centigrade, if zero wasn't the freezing point of water and make it the absolute zero, that's what the Kelvin scale is. So it works well for things like, cosmology and real big picture scientific work.
Hey, Thomas, I'm just going to let you know, if you're going to continue down this road with Jeff, you're in trouble. I'm just letting you know. I said, we're going to be here a while. I'm just letting you know. So,
I'll let you know that this is what we go through when we're on the road. So you'll see this from time to time.
So Jeff, Everett and I we'll kind of sit here and wait.
I hope you're enjoying today's interview with Jazz Funk and Soul Trio. If you love the Beatles, and who doesn't, I have a sister podcast. It's called The Beatles Come To America. It is a limited run, just about 25 shows, with the Beatle Guru, Brooke Halpin. We review all the U.S. recordings from the past, like Hey Jude, Something New, Yesterday and Today. You got to check it out. Patreon is gone. Venmo and Cash App is in. And boy, would I love your financial support. That link is also in the show notes. Now, let's get back into the action. The new album's called Forcast. It's the Jazz Funk and Soul guys, and we are about to hear some tracks from that album.
All right, it's time to get into that album. Okay, so it's called Forcast. It's on the Shanachie record label. August 5th is the release date. I just have 4 tracks that we're going to play samples of, if you're able to talk a little about it. I have to start with fish grease, because I didn't know what that meant. So I went into the Urban Dictionary. Stop laughing. To really fly, or to be hot, or also to be ballin'. Called fish grease.
Well, okay. Once again, this is a colloquialism or a cultural phenomenon, if you will, in the African American culture. On the stove, you had 3 cans of grease.
Crisco.
You had your chicken grease, you had your bacon grease, and you had your fish grease. Now, my mother, in her infinite wisdom and culinary expertise, just put it all in 1 can. But the proper way to do it was you had 3 cans, 1 for bacon, 1 for fish, and 1 for chicken. And so, because this was kind of a funky track, I said, okay, bacon grease, a little common. Chicken grease, a little common. Fish grease, that's the one. And so that's from whence the title was extracted.
More of a literal meaning than anything.
Yes, yes.
My mom did the same thing. All grease went into, once you get the bacon, it was all screwed up. But
it was all screwed up, but it tasted good. I mean, it really worked well in cornbread. Cast iron skillet, you make the batter. Cast iron skillet, you take literally a scoop from the can, the conglomerate can, put in the cast iron skillet, melt the grease, pour the batter in the pan, stick it in the oven. The best cornbread you will ever have in your life.
I don't have grease in my house anymore, I'm afraid.
Along with
along
with arteriosclerosis and diabetes. But hey, I digress.
AZ without AC.
Yeah, so the guitar intro sets up this song up, and it's really funky. Where'd that title come from?
Well, I live in Arizona. I was funking in Arizona. It was real simple. Originally, I named the song DS. It was a kind of an homage to David Sanborn. The song itself, when I was writing it, it kind of reminded me of a style of the style of recordings that David was doing back in the 80s. And so the working title for it was DS. By the time we finished it, and I'd already had Marcus Miller play on it, who produced those records for David Sanborn back in the 80s and early 90s, as well as Ray Bardani mixing it, who mixed those early David Sanborn records. By the time we had it in the can for the record company saw the title. It was just D.S. And that was it. And they said, well, we really like this song. We might want to use it as a single at one point. It kind of needs a appropriate title or a better, give us a meaning. I couldn't call it David Sanborn. So I just said, well, one title I worked with was Funkin' in AZ. Actually, that was the working title, the first working title. And then I named it DS. So I went back to Funkin' in AZ.
Yeah, great song. We're going to play a sample of that also.
Great.
Yeah. Keep Holding On has like good solos for every single one. That's my favorite track on this album.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like everyone.
Which track is that?
Keep Holding On.
Oh yeah.
I feel like everyone gets a good solo. It kind of breathes a little more. Any feedback on that before we play a sample of that?
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. I love the groove on that one. And like you said, it's a nice change of pace compared to all the other stuff that's on there. It's a real sophisticated, kind of slick track, which, you know, the other ones are more like full on jams, I guess.
I would agree with Jeff and just, you know, say it was just one of those songs that kind of wrote itself. And with everybody else's input on it, playing wise, it just really turned into a nice piece, really nice piece.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something you would probably extend a little more in concerts, so you guys can really
all of them we extend a little more.
All right, so we got to close up with a CSL, obviously. Any thoughts on that? Because we're going to play a sample of that also.
Well, the impetus for that was obviously Chuck Loeb. And one of the things I loved about Chuck is he had an uncanny way of inserting the best bebop guitar playing on grooves. And so it was kind of a nod to being able to have an unabashed R&B groove, in this case, sort of a 90s, you know, if you will, R. Kelly kind of groove, and inserting some jazz on top of it. So that's why, you know, that was the impetus for the song, and that's why I call it CSL.
I think it was a really nice tribute to Chuck, for sure.
Guys, I really appreciate your time today. I thank you very much, everyone.
Hey, one more thing.
Huh? I got one more.
This Pascal guy, that is not chemistry. That's physics.
Okay. How about Joel? What's Joel? Joule. Joel?
Oh, well, Joule. Yeah, that's that has to do with equations. It represents energy. How much energy is in joules?
Yeah, quantity of work. Mm-hmm.
Jeff would, on some of our earlier records, on one of our earlier records was The Speed of Light.
Yeah.
And Silver Lining. We had two songs that we would do in our set. And Jeff was always responsible for writing out the set list. So Chuck had a song called Silver Lining, and we also had a song off of one of our records called
Speed of Light.
Speed of Light. And Jeff would do the chemical title of those tunes.
Well, the scientific notation, speed of light, like equals MC squared to C squared, and
you just see us looking at the set list, going, "What the hell is that?"
And Silver Lining, silver is Ag, you know, the chemical silver for silver. So.
And we just stare at the set list and say, "Jeff, English, please."
So salt peanuts would be NaCl peanuts, right?
Exactly.
Okay, just checking.
All right, John.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining me today on Something Came from Baltimore.
All right.
You got
Thank
it.
you, Thomas.
I hope you enjoyed the interview today with Paul Jackson Jr., Everett Harp, and Jeff Lorber. The trio is called Jazz, Funk, and Soul. I'm your host, Tom Gouker from Something Came from Baltimore. The show is over, and have a great day.
Something came from Baltimore.